You find yourself being herded into a transport bus with bright red interiors and perfectly pressed seats, the kind that screams state pride. Today is your state-sponsored vacation day, not the sort you dreamed of as a child, with distant sandy beaches and adventure. This is a forced getaway, complete with synchronized chants and swastika-laden umbrellas. The bus hums along smooth roads, lined with banners praising the glorious fatherland, as you try to convince yourself that even this mandated holiday might offer a slice of respite from the relentless grind. The journey feels surreal. Outside, the countryside rolls by like a well-ordered film set. Fields trimmed and hedged to perfection. Trees planted in rows. A rhythm both hypnotic and oppressive. You notice groups of families, their faces set in polite smiles as they wave at each passing landmark. Their voices merge into one clear, almost musical refrain, the sound of a nation marching to one tune. You're here too, part of it all, whether you want to be or not. At the destination, a resort conveniently named Sonnenreich Haven, the protocol is as strict as it is peculiar. The moment you step off the bus, uniformed ushers greet you with crisp hiles and guide you to temporary lodgings that have all the necessary comforts. Clean towels, regulated meals, and even state-of-the-art, if you can call it that, sunblock. Yes, sunblock. An unlikely necessity under a regime that preaches hard labor and rigid order. Yet they provide it with a flourish, accompanied by a reminder to protect your pure skin. You apply the lotion with slow, methodical strokes, as if each movement might be observed by unseen eyes. It's absurdly gentle for a world otherwise hardened by fear. The resort is as much a propaganda showcase as it is a retreat. The grounds feature manicured gardens where wildflowers have been replaced by sculptures of idealized figures in athletic poses. Every detail has been curated to impress upon you that the regime cares even about leisure. You see groups of citizens engaging in organized sports, running in formation, diving into a clear pool with perfect synchrony, and even doing exercises that mimic the precise steps of military drills. It's all very high-spirited and regimented, a chorus of bodies moving in flawless harmony. At midday, the guests are gathered in a sun-dappled courtyard for a cultural infusion session. Here, a charismatic speaker addresses the crowd, his tone buoyant, his words rehearsed. He tells tales of historic German triumphs, casting the vacation as a time when you can recharge your spirit for the glory of tomorrow's war efforts. His voice is filled with patriotic fervor, while behind him, synchronized music plays, trumpets and drums blending into an oddly joyful anthem. You try not to feel the irony. Here you are, forced to enjoy leisure, under the ever-watchful gaze of a state that has no real interest in your personal happiness, but insists that you parade it anyway. Laughter rings out at a short break when someone cracks a joke about the absurdity of having to earn vacation points through participation in compulsory fun, an exercise that, while outwardly forced, carries a mischievous undertone. You chuckle despite yourself, wondering if such laughter might be seen as a subtle act of subversion. Still, you swallow the joke, knowing that every sound is monitored, The guests later whisper about whether one could trade vacation points on the black market, if only as a ticket to a more genuine escape. The conversation is fleeting, quickly replaced by the next scheduled event. A quirky detail that makes you pause. The resort offers Reich-approved sunscreen that comes in an oddly nostalgic tin, reminiscent of wartime rations. Its label boasts the latest in racial hygiene and purity protection. The irony isn't lost on you. This lotion, meant to safeguard the skin of the ideal Aryan citizen, is as much a symbol of the regime's absurd control over even the minutest parts of your daily existence. You dab a bit onto your arms and smile ruefully. It's a forced souvenir from a vacation that isn't really a vacation at all. After the cultural hour, you join a guided excursion, a tour of a nearby natural park that has been sanitized and transformed into a state-approved showcase of German natural beauty. The guide, dressed in an immaculate uniform adorned with stars and medals, leads the group along a path where every detail has been planned. He points out a crystal-clear lake, its surface undisturbed by human worry, and claims that its purity is a reflection of the ideal German spirit. You note that while the water might be clear, your thoughts are muddied by memories of bombed-out neighborhoods and broken lives. Still, for these few hours, you let the scenic beauty wash over you, even if it is wrapped in banners of propaganda. Along the trail, you sense a persistent underlying current of enforced camaraderie. Strangers become companions for the walk, swapping guarded smiles and minimal words about family back home. One elderly man, with deep lines of worry etched on his face, leans closer to share a murmured comment about how, before the war, vacations meant freedom, a concept now as distant as a myth. His voice is soft, fraught with the bitterness of the past, and you nod, understanding that even in this orchestrated fun, memories seep in unbidden. As the tour continues, the guide points out an area where the state has arranged for recreational activities. There's a field set up with equipment for beach volleyball, only it's more like a military exercise in coordination. Participants must play in strict formation, every move choreographed to the melody of a loudspeaker broadcasting party slogans. You watch a group as they spike a makeshift ball, each jump and landing synchronized like clockwork. A teenager next to you whispers, "It's almost like we're drilling for battle." You smile at the remark. Inside, you're grappling with the surreal fact that even a casual game is infused with the absurdity of perpetual war preparations. Lunch is served in a dining hall filled with long tables, where every guest is assigned a seat based on their contribution score. The meals are bland, of course, pre-packaged and nutritionally optimized for efficiency rather than enjoyment. You eat slowly, the taste of the food blending with the overpowering scent of disinfectant and state-approved cologne. Historians still argue whether such measures during the wartime created a new, sanitized form of nationalism, one that filtered out the messy realities of life in favor of a cleaner, orchestrated veneer. For you, the meal is both sustenance and a reminder. Even nourishment is political here. As afternoon turns to evening, the resort hosts a series of evening entertainment events. There's a modest talent show where local citizens perform approved folk songs and dances. The performances are skillful but somber, a collective expression of duty rather than joy. One act features a couple performing a delicate tap dance routine, their shoes clicking perfectly in time with a forced melody. You're struck by how, in the midst of rigorous control, a spark of humanity still manages to shine through. After the show, you wander through the resort's lights, twinkling like artificial stars against the night. You pause in a quiet corridor and note a small plaque commemorating the Friends of the Reich. A strange mix of volunteerism and iconography that hints at a backdoor network of gentle resistance. The plaque, barely noticed by most, bears a name you recall from your youth. A forgotten artist whose work was once celebrated before being silenced by the regime. It's a reminder that even in enforced leisure, history murmurs its truths. When the day finally winds down, you return to your modest room. Outside, the synchronized chants have softened to a lull, the voices receding into the night like an echo of distant drums. You peel off the sunscreen with sticky fingers and reflect on the day. This vacation, mandated and stripped of spontaneity, is nonetheless a pause from the oppressive routine, an opportunity to glimpse the layers beneath the painted surface of state control. It leaves you both weary and wistful, having tasted freedom in small, orchestrated moments. As you lie in bed, the events of the day settle over you. The memory of the clean air in the natural park, the soft murmur of genuine conversation, and even the ironic humor of a sunscreen tin become a quiet comfort. You know tomorrow the routine will resume. The same watchful eyes, the same controlled smiles. Yet for a few hours today, you manage to find a semblance of respite in the midst of a manicured, all too perfect vacation. It's a fragile interlude, a whisper of possibility in a symphony of command. And as you close your eyes, the sound of distant synchronized chants mixes with the soft hum of your thoughts, reminding you that even in mandated moments of leisure, the heart seeks its own kind of freedom. You let that thought cradle you through the night, a small, defiant comfort amid the orchestrated order of this peculiar world. The next morning, the sky above your city feels unusually quiet. Too quiet, in fact. There's no birdsong, no laughter spilling from open windows, and none of the usual market buzz. Instead, a hush blankets everything, as if the world is holding its breath. You wake with a sense of unease that hardens when your neighbor, an old man with a voice like gravel, leans out his window and murmurs a single word: raid. You'd hoped today would pass without incident, but the wail of sirens cuts through your thoughts like a blade. It starts low and climbs into a mechanical scream that makes your bones tighten. You've been trained to respond to that sound. Everyone has. You grab your emergency pack, sling on your coat, and head for the cellar, feet echoing in the stairwell. Around you, others do the same, like clockwork dolls wound too tight. There's no chaos, only this strange rehearsed silence. The air in the cellar is damp and heavy with fear. You're shoulder to shoulder with neighbors you barely know beyond polite nods. There's the couple from 2 floors up, clutching their toddler, who keeps whispering about thunder. A teenage boy fidgets, bouncing a rubber ball in his hand over and over again. Someone hisses for him to stop. The atmosphere tightens further. You sit with your back to the wall, breathing through your mouth to avoid the thick scent of mildew and fear. And then you hear it. The first distant boom. It doesn't sound like anything from the movies. It's lower, more guttural. Not like thunder, not like a car crash. Something worse. A deep, bone-vibrating thud that shakes the dust from the ceiling. You clutch your knees and try to time your breaths with the rhythm of the explosions. The walls tremble again, and you swear the lights flicker, though it might just be your eyes playing tricks. The state calls these moments defensive disruptions, as if rebranding aerial bombardment with bureaucratic poetry could make it less terrifying. You remember the leaflets dropped a few weeks ago, warning that enemies of peace may seek to disturb the tranquility of our cities, as if entire buildings being blown apart is just a rude interruption. Historians still argue whether the civilian population in Nazi Germany fully understood the scale of the destruction their own military had inflicted elsewhere, or whether, by the time Allied bombs began falling regularly, the veil of propaganda was still too thick to pierce. For you, crouched in the dark, theory doesn't matter. What matters is whether the next bomb lands on your block. A quirky detail sticks in your mind. Someone, in a bizarre bid to lift morale, once brought a gramophone into the shelter and played swing records, American ones of all things. There was a moment days ago when that jazzy rhythm filled the basement with something close to life, but the machine disappeared soon after. You suspect someone reported it. Everything fun seems to vanish like that. After an hour, the booms grow softer. The sirens change pitch again, signaling the all clear. You and the others climb back up into the ruined morning like moles blinking in the sunlight. Dust swirls through broken window panes. The air smells of smoke, sharp and acrid. A block away, a building lies crumpled in on itself like a child's paper craft gone wrong. People gather at a distance, whispering, pointing. You pass a makeshift aid station where a nurse with trembling hands tends to an elderly woman cradling her cat. The cat looks utterly unbothered. The woman doesn't stop crying. You offer to help, but there's not much to do, unless you count clearing rubble with your bare hands. Back home, you do a mental tally. Water still runs, stove still works, your belongings mostly intact. You sweep broken glass from the kitchen, trying not to glance at the cracked portrait of the Führer hanging crooked on the wall. You're not even sure how it got there. You didn't put it up. Probably the building superintendent, making sure everyone displayed the required devotion. You straighten it, not out of loyalty, but because crooked things make you anxious now. Later that day, work resumes. Yes, work. The regime expects productivity even under bombardment. You report to your shift at the munitions depot, only to find the outer fence scorched. A corner of the building collapsed. Your supervisor greets everyone with a brittle smile and says, Business as usual, comrades. It's not a joke. You get to it, assembling shell casings while the air still hums with yesterday's terror. At lunch, there's talk of a nearby school hit during the raid. Rumors say it was an accident. Others claim it was deliberate. Punishment for a resistance leaflet found on the premises. No one knows what's true anymore. Conspiracy weaves its way through even the blandest conversation. That evening, you wander through the eerily quiet streets. Stores are boarded up. A propaganda loudspeaker crackles with static, then coughs out a message about glorious perseverance and unshakable unity. It feels like a ghost is trying to comfort you with a stick. You turn a corner and nearly stumble over a crater the size of a small car. It wasn't there yesterday. A boy stands at its edge, tossing pebbles into the hole like he's playing a game. You watch him for a moment and wonder how a child learns to treat destruction like a sandbox. By the time you reach your apartment, night has descended. You light a candle, electricity's still spotty, and sit near the window, looking out at a skyline now broken in 3 places. There's no moon, just the vague shimmer of stars behind a veil of ash and cloud. You sip thin tea and try not to think about tomorrow's sirens. Still, somewhere deep in your gut, you know that this strange routine, wake, survive, work, repeat, is slowly hardening you. Not in a heroic sense, not like the state wants you to be, more like clay in a furnace, brittle on the outside, cracking beneath the surface. The raid was just another page in this weird, spiraling diary of your life. And like everyone else, you'll turn the page, clean up the mess, and pretend normal is just around the corner. The factory smells like oil and sweat, with a lingering metallic tang that never quite fades from your nostrils. It clings to your clothes, your skin, even your dreams. You return to your post under the flickering industrial lights, where your job is to punch holes into metal sheets for airplane parts you'll never fly in. Precision is everything. Even when the air raids keep shaking your hands, you'd never thought of yourself as essential. And yet, here you are, part of the war machine. The Reich calls you a home front hero, though there's no cape involved. Only a smock that smells like overcooked cabbage and a lunch tin that's half air. Posters around the walls scream about duty and loyalty, their faces permanently locked in awkward patriotic ecstasy. You try not to look at them. Work starts with the blast of a whistle, and you settle into the rhythm. Step, align, punch, move. It's numbing, but oddly comforting, like muscle memory with no thought required. Your supervisor paces behind you, arms crossed, lips tight. He's not the worst one. There are rumors of another foreman who docked pay from a woman because she sneezed too loudly and disrupted the order. Productivity charts hang by the doors like trophies. Every dip is marked in red. You already know where this is heading. Your shift has fallen just below the average. The charts don't account for bombings, injuries, or hunger. They don't care that half your team sleeps in shelters. Just numbers. Some days, it feels like you're assembling weapons with one hand and being crushed by paperwork with the other. And then there are the forced laborers. They arrive in trucks, their faces blank, limbs stiff, escorted by armed guards. They're mostly from Eastern Europe, though you have overheard the word political whispered more than once. Their uniforms are mismatched and patched. No one tells you their names. They eat separately, work separately, and sleep in on-site barracks behind locked gates. You're told not to talk to them, but their eyes say plenty. Some burn with quiet rage. Others are hollowed out like old tree stumps. Historians still debate whether most Germans working in these industries truly understood the extent of exploitation or simply chose not to look too closely. You know what you see, but whether you know, in the deepest sense of the word, is harder to say. You share a glance with a girl, no older than 17, who struggles with a gear twice her size. You want to help, but a glance from the supervisor freezes you. Your fingers return to the punch machine. Lunch is barely food. Watery beet soup, a crust of bread. You eat with co-workers who speak in half sentences now, as if language itself is rationed. The guy across from you, Klaus, has started collecting matchbox labels. Says it keeps his mind off the noise. He gives you one today, a red one with a leaping deer, and says, "For luck." You pocket it, unsure if it's a joke or a lifeliners. In the afternoon, the propaganda truck rolls by again, blaring about victory and sacrifice. It's a daily intrusion, a loudspeaker sermon on how every bolt you tighten brings Germany one step closer to triumph. You wonder if they play the same recording in every city, or if someone's actually in the back of that truck with a microphone, sipping coffee and yelling about national destiny. An odd moment hits when you catch yourself humming along to the tune piped through the loudspeaker. A rousing martial melody that worms its way into your brain like a parasite with a metronome. You stop immediately, disturbed at how easy it is to fall into sync. By now, your back aches, your feet pulse, and your ears ring from the constant machinery. The final hour of your shift is the longest. You keep glancing at the clock, which seems to mock you with its frozen second hand. And just before the bell finally shrieks, the plant manager bursts in to announce a new productivity contest. The top performing team will get a bonus, a jar of jam, and a pair of socks. This actually causes a ripple of excitement. Jam is basically mythological now. You leave the factory under a darkening sky. Your hands raw from metal shavings. On your way home, you pass another factory, this one guarded more heavily. Rumor says they're making V-weapons there, the kind that can fly across countries and deliver retribution. The word rolls uneasily in your mind. Retribution for what? It's not until you're back in your apartment that you notice the small tear in your jacket sleeve. You debate mending it or just ignoring it. You settle on a safety pin. It feels like an accurate metaphor. That night, you dream of machines. Gears spinning without end, conveyor belts that never stop. Voices counting numbers in languages you don't understand. You wake up with oil on your fingertips and no memory of why that terrifies you. And yes, you still go back the next day.